Feeling trapped by all the stuff? Can't keep up? No time to think or plan? Has the rush and gush of modern life got you trapped?
Slow is the new fast. Slow is the new fast.
Slow is the new fast.
Set your coordinates. It's Mach 0, making time for life, one thing at a time. With your host, the VIP coach, John Davidson.
Hi, this is JD, the VIP coach. And I'm so glad that you're listening to this show. This is Mach 0, making time for life, one thing at a time. The reason why you're here and you're following our podcast from the VIP coach is because you have felt squished, squeezed, you felt pinched by not having enough time in the day. How often do you find yourself saying, oh my gosh, I can't get to all the things that matter. I wish I could have a 30, right? I want a 30-hour day. I want extra hours in the day, and yet we have all the same amount in the day. So we can't change the amount of hours, but we can change how you make the most of the time that you have. It's about looking at things through the quality view, not the quantity view, and that according to our Mach 0 show, our philosophy is that slow is the new fast. So how do you slow down? Well, that's what this show is about, is giving you the tools and ideas to help you slow yourself down so that you can go faster. The only way, the only antidote to changing your history is through the power of reflection. And we know this. We know that when you slow down and you proceed with things in more deliberate ways, in more relaxed ways, you're able to come at things with more tact, with more strategic awareness. You're able to more consciously and mindfully focus on your habits, the habits that are going to position your outcomes so that you're able to stay on purpose. You're more goal-centric. You have a more creative orientation in what you're trying to do. So I created this Mach 0 show as a collection point of all the different experiences and tools. So I had a place to integrate what I'm learning through the VIP coach program. We coach over 50 entrepreneurs in 3 different countries in the Northern Hemisphere. And all of them are highly creative individuals that are looking to become more creatively freed up, liberate themselves. I feel like I kind of restore the genius that they have in them. They've been so piled up and bogged down in all of these roles and responsibilities that it makes building a business or building an executive career no fun. And what you're looking for is a career growth path that offers you a regeneration of energy. Not degeneration of energy, but you want to live longer and extend years to your life. And at the same time, you're confronting your own perceived immortality. You want to live a long time, but you want to spend the time on things that count. You want to live into the essentials. You want to focus your life on things that really matter to you. And you want to get the BS out, and you want to remove the people, the things, the stuff, the contracts, the arrangements, all the complexity that just demands all these qualities, all these distractions from you. You want to stay focused on the content that you want to create in your life, and you really want to be involved in your life. That's what you're hungry for, is to stay pleasurably involved in what you're creating. Now, today I'd like to talk about a concept that I bring up in coaching a lot called being undertalented and overcommitted. How to get out before your passion kills you. Gosh, and I came up with this topic because how many medical clients am I coaching that are unhappy in their careers? And you know why? You'll see a doctor, a dentist. You'll see how unhappy they are because their old thinking back when they started their career was they should follow what they're superior at. So they thought, well, I'm really great at something, and so I'm required to do something that I'm inclined to be really great at. But what they didn't see, what they didn't foresee coming is that everything that they would start doing that they're great at, it didn't have all the intrinsic energy, the intrinsic desire. It didn't give them the life when they did it. So there's too much generosity when we're so good at something that we attract all these people to depend on us for it, but we run into a spiritual crisis. And the Mach 0 show is about creating a spiritual orgasm. The people who win in the game of business, they have spiritual punch. We're all about marrying spirituality and commerce to coexist in a way where you owe the world your happiness. Your happiness and your gifts are what the world, it belongs to the world. This is what you're supposed to do. But you see, all these professionals, they're walking the procession of the living dead. Yeah. They're like zombies, coming home with fatigue, wishing it would all come down, wishing they would be rescued. Tomorrow, a magic wand would be pulled out and they could make their wish, get me into something I love doing, get me into something that gives me energy. Why is this so important? Why is this on the minds of so many individuals? It's a cultural force. It's not because we're entitled to, it's not because it's our birthright. It's because the brevity of life is very confronting. Living close to death motivates you. If this were your last day, would you be doing what you're doing? What are you doing with this wild and precious life that you have? Have you forgotten that we all die? Have you forgotten that this thing doesn't stay? We don't stay on earth. Things are not intimate. They're not infinite, right? You're not going to live. Nor am I. I don't know when that day is going to come. But just that very understanding, that eternal truth that we all face, that we all share a common truth. We all will perish. And because we know we will all perish, it gets us to put into perspective, it rises right to the top, our matter factor list. What really matters most to us? And what's so confronting is when you take an audit of your time, you realize that the people and the activities and the agreements and a lot of the things you're signing up for really aren't in alignment with what that matter factor list really is. Why not? Because you don't say no. Why not? Because you're afraid. Why not? Because you have ideals. You're supposed to live up to those standards. Why not? Because you have a role to keep. You have to meet those requirements. You need to be responsible. And so what you do is you stay in the safe zone. You don't take risks. So just because you're great at something doesn't require that you're supposed to do it. That's a model handed down from many generations that you should stay in the lanes of your superior skills. But most people I've met who live by this view end up either very, very bored later in life, or they're trapped doing this thing because they get a nice lifestyle, they get people depending on them, like their kids, and their kids go to the most prestigious schools, they drive around these great cars, they get into debt. And this is why these medical people, these doctors, are some of the most suicidal professionals on the planet. And also, just because you love doing something doesn't require that you create it. This is where the undertalented and the overcommitted comes in. You may love it, but you may not be good enough at it to deliver value or even be competitive. See, growing up, I met an ice skater who determined himself he's going to land in the Olympics men's championships. His name was Freddie. But as Freddie went along, it was obvious that he didn't have the actual affinity to triple jump like the rest. And after shifting out of skating at 18 years old, he finally got clueful. That skyrocketed him like a human cannonball into a sales career. At 18, he started selling door to door, and today, 25 years later, he's in a niche in the video media industry, and he's rocking. He's doing 7 figures. That's because the habitat in which we perform has certain requirements that just some people are inclined to thrive while others are wasting their talents that are really meant for something else. The easiest way to make change and get immediate leverage isn't to change yourself. It's not to work on yourself, because if you do that, then you're preoccupied with working on your weaknesses. Find the right environment for you to thrive in. Change your environment. It's a pretty radical idea. You kind of give more power to the environment than yourself. So you're more like a crab who's depending on an exoskeleton. Find the right environment, thrive in that environment. But no, we just are obedient to our own commitment that we're going to stick to it, never give up, stay in that environment. And then you become broke, staying in it so long that you're becoming stupid. See, nowadays we see talent after talent show on the television, right? And people who convince themselves that this is their passion. And yet we can't stand listening to that terrible sound of their voice, or their act actually stinks, and we boo them off the stage. And their pride has a way of lowering their tendency to confront their actual ability. Because people will go as far as putting their entire identity on their act. You can see it. And when they're rejected, their whole fragility gives rise to lashing back, telling the judges how wrong they are and how blind the world is to their ability, and I'm going to show them. It would seem as if they need a circuit change in their thinking, don't they? How can they not see how bad they are or what they're really doing? The legend in their own mind rides again. They protest their critics with more silly behavior, and then increases the people's disgust and distaste for their work. So they push people away and eject their fans because they're so prideful. And then when they're offended, they become really nasty people. And then we don't even want to even watch them. We don't want to have anything to do with them. You see, a lot of people today in all performance arenas are living closer to death. We know that. And that means that they understand the brevity of their life. But this isn't suggesting that they're negative people. It doesn't mean that they're depressed. It means that they're inspired by confronting their perceived immortality. They understand the brevity of life. So they have to choose to live their lives doing things that matter, in habitats where they're born to run, like a horse in a pasture. But wait a minute, JD, but a lot of gurus chant that you got to love what you do because what you love is where you're gifted. Yeah, but see, for some that's true. And a bigger audience of losers also claim they love what they do and never get better. They never get to support their own living. They never reach significant levels of impact and success. You know, maybe they can do it as a hobby, so they do it for their own sake. But then they miss out on all the glory and all the great things of living in the right habitat and letting it be the fullness of their potential where they can shine. And it brings up an interesting balance between the perceived skills that we have and the perceived challenge that we take aim towards. And that requires discerning one's abilities accurately and inabilities by comparison to the outcome they seek to create, and the requirements to understand what it takes to make it happen.
It's Monday morning. I'm drained.
You've got mail.
Look at this. It's the Monday Advantage video. Yeah! Now I can get past the distractions and implement something new. The Monday Advantage. It's that easy. Just subscribe free for a limited time at highlevelperformance.com. Every Monday, launch the week with fresh tools, giving you the right state of mind, focus, and confidence. See what becoming a gifted boss and serial creator is all about. Subscribe today at highlevelperformance.com. That's highlevelperformance.com. And start enjoying your Monday Advantage today. Grow your business and grow as a human being with these captivating books authored by the VIP coach himself, John Davidson. The Day I Built My Barbecue is about creative freedom. Learn how you can not only live well, but also grow a thriving business at the same time. John shows you his step-by-step technique with the principles, strategies, and steps to move from a business operator to a business owner. The day you build your barbecue is the day we all wish for. Totally free of distractions, totally available to living well, fully present. Then don't miss Unstoppable You. It's about creative value. When we do what we love and love what we do, we discover ways to make our business more fun and monetize our passions. Through stories, tools, and steps, this book will help you bring something to the world that no one else can and bridge your most unique talents to the deepest aspirations you have of the future. And stand in the presence of all you are. It's about creative purpose. What does it mean to live on purpose? How do we work with the mystery that life presents us at every moment? In this book, John shows us through the silent spaces in life how to connect with our innermost sacred projects and passages. You'll learn how to bring the work, language, and presence of the soul into everything you do. Visit highlevelperformance.com to pick up any of these books in paperback or Kindle editions today. That's highlevelperformance.com. From go time to slow time. Slow is the new fast. Mach 0, making time for life, one thing at a time. With VIP coach John Davidson.
Do we really understand what kind of sacrifices we really need to make on behalf of what we want to create? Do we really understand how to prepare for what we're really up against? I don't think so. I think what we have is a bad case of overconfidence. We do this to mask or impersonate the confrontation of ourselves, to learn that we really are not good at what we're doing. We don't like bad news, and we don't want to look like a fool, and yet in all creative processes, every one of those performance arenas started with a foolish stage. But we set up all these escape routes, we get busy, we distract ourselves, we set up all these reasons, and then we don't confront our actual truth. You see, the honesty in this whole thing with oneself is what leads to resourcefulness and a certain quality of self-allocation. Yet, many people all their lives attempt to live their passion, and remain unsuccessful, even broken as souls because of their obsessive level of commitment and personal standards to never give up. Giving up is not such a bad thing, but the reason why people don't want to is they think it's about their identity. When you give up, you think it's about whether you're a good person or not. Giving up can be one of the most smartest things that you do, especially doing it early enough before you're stupid enough to continue. Because if you go on too late and you're not talented at what you're doing and yet terribly passionate, you got to look at the consequences. So this dynamic to remain blind to one's poor ability is what I call talented to be talented, what I call T to T. And talented to be talented means you're able to see with clear eyes your true talent level, whether good, bad, or ugly. To be T to T, you must understand there are two types of incompetency. 1, fatal incompetency. 2, potential incompetency. Now, the first is when a person attempts through succession to get better and better and never does. They're simply biologically incapable. So, in other words, this isn't their cup of tea. For example, a baritone singer may want to be a soprano but doesn't have the physical ability to become one. Or a basketball player is too short to compete. There are those who would protest and play anyway, and they've got something to prove, but they're not talented to be talented. They could thrive in another arena more suitable to their attributes. You might say, well, then they could team up. Well, maybe they could find a teammate. Yeah, that's true, and if there is a double sport and what they should do, they should be a doubles tennis player versus a single player. Sure, there may be team solutions, but we're talking about more of a life direction. We're talking about confronting the brevity of life, spending our time on things that are worthwhile, things that we're great at but we're also passionate at. And this involves where we are potentially incompetent. I'll get into that in a minute. But no matter how long or how hard we try to improve, it's never getting better when we're fatally incompetent, and that is real. And that may be difficult to see or accept when someone holds ideas or ideals of doing well or proving others wrong. But let's look at the second kind of incompetence, this potential incompetence. This is the potential to improve over time. So as a function of creating an outcome that matters, the activity to build capacity over time does improve, and the individual moves closer to their desired level of competence or creation. Now, I did this while learning how to sailboard. I was tested to see if I was one or the other while I was growing up in Malibu Beach. Luckily and gladly, I was not fatally incompetent and eventually learned to sailboard. But had I been fatally incompetent, I would have had to make a critical decision at some point to stop doing it. So it knocked out my teeth several times, and I cut my face while getting knocked around in the waves. But instead of swimming into the beach, I got back up. It's not because I was just stupidly committed. It was because I was seeing progress checks between where I was in my look back to where I was going and where I currently was in comparison to it. I learned how to speak Spanish. I learned that I was potentially incompetent, that I could see progressions from single word conversions to entire sentences. I was getting it. But there are other languages that I am absolutely 100% clear that I am fatally incompetent, like the language of accounting. For years, I have stupidly tried to understand accounting, and I just came to the realization, which is so peaceful, in getting that it is not for me. It's not about me being inadequate. It's not about me having a weakness. It's about something else called fatal incompetency. And that really set me free to realize that it has nothing to do with my measure as a person. It has to do with knowing that there are other habitats where I can thrive. And if I can put myself and my talents to match those habitats, I can land in the fullness of my potential. And certainly coaching was one of those. So knowing when to quit is a big part of playing smart in any performance arena for sure. And quitting is a smart idea when it's not the environment for you. So we've gotten there so far. Remember, this isn't about being definitely pessimistic. It's being cogent in pursuing arenas that suit potential incompetency. See, mastery requires your conscious incompetence. It requires you to know when you're potentially or fatally incompetent. That's why awareness is such a huge area of leverage, being self-aware. But two things come into play to maximize this potential incompetence. One is a desired end result that you want. And two is a keen awareness of the current talent level that you have. And by keeping this juxtaposed as points of reference, the point A, the truth, contrasted to point B, desire, give rise to a powerful force called structural tension. And this is like the archer and the bow, where tension is seeking resolution the more the bow is stretched. You see, what happens is it arms a certain energy where it tends to go into the path of least resistance. Tension naturally seeks resolution. So knowing where you are compared to where you want to be is the armature and the engine of the creative process. It's a powerful, powerful force that as you take action, the desired state and current state drive learning through trial and error, through planning, action, and then reaction by applying newly modified information. Creating actually is learning. And by acting upon a desired creation, you build rapport with your ability to tell the truth, be objective, and adjust after things work or don't work. But you take your identity out of the process to use failures as assets. Now, some might ask, well, then JD, where does the quitting come in? When is it smart to quit? You can change your mind at any time. This is probably why you'll quit something and shift direction, because what mattered once before may not matter now. And that doesn't mean rationalizing, saying, well, it just doesn't matter anymore. I'm not good at it. It doesn't matter anymore. That would be like pulling back when you don't want to do what it takes. You know you're potentially incompetent, but you're not willing to make the sacrifices. So you got to put that into perspective. All you're doing there is simply lowering yourself to finding some toleration. And you may not have the intestinal fortitude to do what it takes. And that may be an interesting observation, that you are actually deciding against what you're going to be required to do, and you just don't have the energy for it. And that can be very smart, because people can hurt themselves stretching so far that they actually break, like a slingshot. They can break the band, or they can cause an injury. I've seen athletic people do that when they go into the game and they require so much of themselves they have no sustainable staying power because they overdo it. They overexert their force. They're overcommitted and underprepared. Or what didn't matter before actually does matter now. And so you will change over time because you evolve. You're not the same person today as you were 5 years ago. Your values have changed. Your experiences have integrated into you. They've shaped you. They have some level of resonance with your values and what you pay attention to. So changing your place to go will then change the current reality, of course, you now see. If you choose to be a photojournalist after a marketing director career, you'll ask yourself what you have to lend to that aim in your current abilities and where your deficits are. You assess your current level, but you're still unaware of fatal or potential aspects of incompetency. Why? Because you have to take some action. The only way to understand the future possibilities is understanding by taking action. You have to be willing to fail forward fast. If you're not willing to act in an instant, then you won't get any feedback to learn whether you're fatally or potentially incompetent. Now, some people will try to avoid all that together by going after it, preparing, predicting the future, when they waste all this time, and they really need to realize, I'm just fatally incompetent. This is not the right habitat, change course. It doesn't mean you're lowering your standards. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're a non-committed person. None of the above. You're being smart. Because you don't get leverage in the environment that you're in because you understand your actual inabilities. You're not made to do everything. Those are your ideals, not your values. Competency building always begins as a conscious learning process. So when conscious competency arrives, you've created change. So you once were a pianist, for example, with a slow left hand, but now your fingers are touching keys at velocities commensurate with more difficult pieces of music. You don't need to see a shrink to learn to play the piano. Just be talented to be talented. Some people touch a piano and never get better. They may love it, but they'll spend a lot of time alone playing. Nobody wants to listen. Suddenly they pick up a guitar and learn it in 4 months. How does that happen? Because they're potentially incompetent at the guitar, and they gain greatly by staying with it. That's the clue. So what you've learned here is that we are dependent on certain habitats and environments to come into the fullness of our potential. That it's not about becoming great at everything. It's about aligning what we are potentially incompetent at with the desired creation that we want to create and making adjustments without our identity in it until our current capacity and our creation become aligned, become one. It's a great way to learn anything, to learn piano, to learn a language, because creating is learning. But we have to be honest with ourselves. The key is the level of honesty, the self-honesty that we have. Self-confidence is knowing that honesty. When we're truly confident, we're able to tell ourselves the truth without trying to manipulate others to think what we are or what we're not enough of. When you're true to yourself and you understand your deficiencies, you don't have to impersonate anybody or play a fraud trying to impress people to affirm your importance. There's no longer any netting. There's no longer having them scratch your neurosis. You can relate with people on a different level because you'll let them be the humanity person they are. You'll allow them to be in their fullness. You'll allow them to be the positive and the negative and all sides, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You'll come to an atmosphere of trust and legitimacy because you've turned it to yourself. You've been true to yourself. And there's nothing greater than being true to yourself. You will respect you more. You will have a place to go because you'll have better starting points as to what to change and where to change. And you'll become more effective at mastering your creative process by a commitment to the truth. I appreciated this opportunity to speak with you today about this topic, and it's my hope that you picked up one good insight or two on being undertalented and overcommitted, and that you start to observe your own choices about where you want to spend your time and what habitats and environments bring you into your very, very best. You don't want to go out into something that you are potentially incompetent at. You do want to go out when your passion is killing you and you're fatally incompetent. Thank you very much.
For more tools, go to highlevelperformance.com. Better business, better life. Fast growth, keeping things simple. Or visit us on Facebook. Mach 0, making time for life, one thing at a time. Set boundaries, focus your attention, and maintain a positive state of mind. Hire a VIP coach to help you. Call 714-912-9261.